Everyone out there is probably watching college basketball right now, but not Boston College fans. They're getting ready for a huge weekend in the TD Garden against UMass and maybe some more. We'll get into that on today's show.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black, editor and publisher of Eagle Insider. Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them out today at nissanusa.com. So, folks, everyone's watching. There's the Oakland and Kentucky game going on as we speak right now. But for Boston College fans, they're getting ready for a big weekend at TD Garden. And to kick it off, they have a game against UMass. And we're going to put football to the side today and talk about hockey. And nobody would be better to bring on than BC Hockey Blogger. How's it going?
Hey, AJ. How you doing? Thanks for having me back.
Oh, it's great. I was so excited that you reached back out because it's been a little while since we've had you on the show, but things are going so well for BC. Well, we'll talk about how things maybe didn't look as great last week. Let's talk a little bit about this game against UMass. BC has owned UMass over the last couple of years, and this would be the worst time for that to fall apart. But how do they match up against the Minutemen, and what are you expecting from this game?
I'm expecting a really good game. The two games they played earlier this year, the first game, the Friday night game, I think it was a 5-1 final, but it was a really close game, for I would say 90% of the game. BC was able to pull away late. And that game was an evenly played game. BC got some lucky bounces. UMass fans weren't really happy with a couple calls in both games, but especially that first game. And the second game was, I think, a little different in that I thought BC actually kind of controlled the play for most of the game, but UMass made a couple plays on odd man rushes, and they had a lead in the third period before they started taking some penalties, and BC was able to capitalize. Yeah, I think it'll be a good test for BC. UMass is a really good defensive team. They're structured. I think that was kind of their issue last year. They didn't really have a great identity as a team. They didn't know whether they want to be, a skill, fast team or more of a defensive-minded team. And, this year they seem to have found that identity. And, they shut Providence down last weekend. They're playing some good hockey. And, I think it's good for BC because UMass will be motivated coming off two losses to BC. And the other thing that I'm, somewhat interested in is UMass is right on the bubble for the NCAAs, and I think they have higher than like a 75% chance to get in now, even higher than that actually. But they, it would still help if they won them. If they win tomorrow, they're in 100%. It's over. I think their only issue is that if St. Cloud beats Denver tomorrow, then it gets a little murky for them. But it'll be a good crowd. There'll probably be a lot of UMass people there tomorrow. And I'm expecting a great game.
So BC has got some thinking to do going off of last weekend. Watching that BC UConn game, the Eagles came out sore and they were all over the Huskies, and you felt good right at the beginning of that game. You're like, oh man, BC's gonna control this game, and then it just falls apart. What happened in that game, and what are they going to prevent from that? What are they going to do to prevent that from happening against UMass?
Yeah, I thought the problem last week was the play of their top players. The first line of Leonard, Cutter, and Smith. It was a horrific game for them. I mean, they really struggled. And credit to UConn. They took it to that line, and honestly, I think that it was weird in that BC's been so reliant on their top two lines all year, especially when Perrault's been in the lineup. That they haven't had a ton of games where they were relying on secondary scoring, but that game in particular, I mean, it was every time that the top line was on the ice, it seemed like UConn had possession in the BCN and was controlling play. But then when you had Malone's line out there, BC kind of flipped the switch. And they get the 3-0 lead. They make a bad play in the neutral zone right after taking the 3-0 lead. It gives UConn some momentum. And the third period, the first 5 minutes of the third period were as bad as I've seen them play, and not just this year, but in the last couple of years, it was really bad. But Fowler, I know that UConn scored 4 goals, but Fowler was terrific. Him and Malone are the only reasons they won that game, and I'm expecting BC to come out and play a strong 60 minutes tomorrow after what happened on Friday.
So, someone watching this team for a while, one of the biggest critiques of BC going into tournament time has been the age and experience. They go against teams sometimes that I think of Lowell, right? Lowell, when you play them a lot of times, I know they're terrible this year, but in years past, they're a team filled with older men, basically, playing against blue chip BC players, but who are 18, 19 years old. Are you worried at all about the age and experience of this team and that kind of rap that some of those late Jerry York teams got, or do you think they're experienced enough to battle some of these older programs?
I think I'm less worried about it this year because they're freshmen. I mean, you look at they played in so many big games. They played in the U18 World Championship this year, the U18s last year, the U20s this year. They played big games. The gold medal game, the semifinals. Beanpot games already this year, BCBU games already this year. So I'm not real worried about the younger kids. I mean, they played big time hockey before. It's not the first time they're going to do that. And on top of that, BC, they are the youngest team in the country, but they've got some experience. You've got Armstrong, Bankston, Malone, Ambrosio, Powell, Posma, Joyce, guys that have been around and played in games like this. So I don't really think the experience thing is too much of a worry. I mean, in the past, it's something that people talk about. But if you're going to recruit the best players, you're going to be inexperienced. You can't have it both ways. And I'd take the talent, and we'll see how it works out.
Sorry, I muted myself. If you were a person predicting this game, is BC going to win? And looking at its Maine and BU, is it going to be another rematch of BC and BU in the finals?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to be Captain Obvious, but I think so. I think BC, like I said a few minutes ago, I think BC will come out strong tomorrow. I think I'm expecting them to play a complete game. And UMass will too. I'm sure UMass will too. But I'll go. I do think BC will win tomorrow. And the latter game, I think Maine's a really good team, but I'm not sure if they're the same team away from Alphon. And BU's been playing really good lately. So I will be Captain Obvious and say that it will be BCBU. But I did take Kentucky to win the basketball, and they're about to lose. So there go my predictions. So.
Yeah, I don't want to even look at my bracket right now with that.
Yeah. So take that for what it's worth.
So let's talk about the end of the year and look at some of the things going on in BC hockey. We have a lot to catch up on. There's awards. We want to talk about Gabe Perrault and where he's at. Will we see him on Friday? We'll get into all of that with BC Hockey Blogger on this special episode of Locked On Boston College. This episode is brought to you by spring cleaning champions, Manscaped. This season, make sure to groom your carpets and the drapes with the leaders in below-the-waist grooming. Clear out that winter bush with Manscaped Lawnmower 5.0 and watch your confidence bloom like the springtime flowers. Embrace the season and join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our special offer. Go to manscaped.com and use code LOCKEDON for $20% off and free shipping. Manscaped, I can say they've finally caught that spring fever. Their 5th-generation trimmer features 2 interchangeable next-generation skin-safe blade heads, a standard one for taking off a little up top, and a full foil blade to go smooth wherever your heart desires. It also features dual LED spotlights to help you guide through the darkest winter debris. Navigate with confidence in your delicate areas. Go get 20% off and get free shipping with the code LOCKEDON at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code LOCKEDON at manscaped.com. Nothing like a little spring cleaning in your pants. All right. I am a big person who loves going to football games, hockey games, you name it, event. I love going to it. Now I get kids, I can bring them to them too. And the place I can get tickets for my entire family at a good price is Game Time. You shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. Now, if I want to take my kids to the Hanover and see Blippi, who's coming to Worcester in a couple weeks, I can get tickets at Game Time. If I want to go take them to the Woo Sox, I can get tickets at Game Time. Boston College Athletics, they've got tickets there too. They've got everything. And the best part about Game Time, when I went to see the BC UVA game, I could find out where I wanted to get my seats, and I bought them on Game Time because it was a good deal. So make sure you get your last-minute ticket deals at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKED for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. This is Locked On Boston College. I am your host, AJ Black, and I hope you enjoyed my Manscaped ad read right there. That was a fun one. But let's talk about hockey again, because this is what this episode's all about. And this is the premier sport right now at Boston College, as they should be. And this week we saw a bunch of awards being named out, listed out. And let's first kick it off by talking about the goaltender of the year, Jacob Fowler. True freshman, had a crazy good first season. Am I correct?
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. I've been so impressed with him. He's played every game except 2, and he's right there with Demko in his freshman year. Joe Woe had a really good freshman year. Spencer Knight, I think I'd have to look back at it. I think Spencer Knight's freshman year was above and beyond anyone else. But Fowler has been, as much attention as the the 3 forwards get. Fowler is right there in terms of his value to the team, and he does so much for them.
He's going to be back next year, you think, right?
Oh yeah. I do think he'll be back next year.
Great. So that's one name I want to talk about. Now, one of the biggest awards, and one as a BC person who just wants to see the future of this program continuing to go in the right direction, is that Greg Brown was named Coach of the Year. And I heard some Maine fans gnashing their teeth at that, which I get. I mean, Maine had a good year too, but he deserved it. I mean, for the first time since some of the last years of Jerry York, BC seems like an elite team again. They seem like they've got that, world beater feel to them, that like they're ready to be the best team in the country. And I think a lot of credit goes to the head coach, Greg Brown, who had, this team ready to go and had one of the best seasons Boston College has ever had. What are your thoughts about him and how he's got this team prepared for the future too?
Absolutely. I mean, he's a great representative of BC. He's a great coach, great person. I think when you look back at it, they've had the best year in hockey since the 1993 Maine team, which is pretty much universally regarded as the best college hockey team of all time. And I certainly understand Maine fans and the Ben Barr argument. I totally get it. But like Pandolfo got it last year at BU, and he did a great job last year. He's doing a great job this year. So I think, with that as the precedent, it was a pretty, clear-cut call in my mind. And I think I hope that they'll continue to have sustained success under him. I don't know if they're going to be this good every year. I mean, that's kind of unrealistic, let's be honest. But with their recruiting, I think they're going to be in the mix more often than not, and that's all you can really hope for.
And now one name that I have to say that I don't talk about enough because he's not a flashy name, and I want to bring him up before we talk about the Hobie Baker, is Eamon Powell, who is one of the top defenders for BC. Talk a little bit about him because he's not a guy that gets he doesn't get the accolades that these other guys do. He got an award. Talk about what award he won and why, this has been a big year for him.
Yeah, I mean, he got the sportsmanship award from Hockey East, and I think that I tweeted this after the UNH game at home. But he's been one of the most underrated defensemen and really players really overall that I can remember over the last couple of years at BC. He does so much for them. From I'm obviously not in the locker room, but everything that I hear, he's a great captain, and everyone in that locker room respects him. I don't think he's the loudest guy on the. Greg Brown has said that he's not the loudest guy, but when he speaks, people listen. And we talk so much about development and the transfer portal these days and how recruiting is. So people don't always stick around for 4 years, but his development over the last 4 years has been one of the best stories that I can remember at BC. He was okay freshman and sophomore year, had some up and down, but the last 2 years, once he got that opportunity, he knew it was coming. He knew guys were going to leave, and they did leave, and he really stepped into that role. And I mean, you look at the games that he missed. It was only a couple, but when he was out, the second Vermont game, I mean, they were completely lost. I mean, it's one game, and you can't take away a lot from one game, but I think that really goes to show how valuable he is to them, and they're really going to miss him next year when he's gone.
All right, let's talk about the 10 Hobie Baker finalists. 2 Boston College players make it: Will Smith and Cutter Gauthier. And you brought up that there was a snub. Talk about who you thought got snubbed and why they should be on that list.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, I think it's a complete joke that Perrault's not. Anyone who watches college hockey knows that Gabe Perrault is one of the top 10 players in college hockey. I'm not saying he should win the award. I understand that. I mean, there's a lot of really good players in college hockey, but BC has played either the first or second toughest schedule in the country this year. BU is the other team that's either first or second. And he leads the team in points per game. He's tied with Celebrini for the national lead in points per game. It's ridiculous. You look at how they played since he went out after the first Vermont game. I understand that they've won every game, but they've not played well in 95. In every one of those games besides the game at Merrimack, they have not played well at all. And it's just like I said about Powell, it's a small sample size. You can't draw everything from that. But no one who pays attention to the sport doesn't think that Gabe Perrault is a top 10 player in the country. And I think honestly, I'm not gonna. He's not the only one that was snubbed. I mean, McGroarty and Gavin Brindley at Michigan. I mean, those guys are top 10 players in the country too. So it's not just a BC thing. But I don't know who's been BC's best player this year. We could argue all day about that, but anyone who's watched this team all year could make a really strong argument that Gabe Perrault has been BC's most valuable player. And if you're the most valuable player on the best team in the country, and you're also tied for the national lead in points per game, you're one of the 10 best players in college hockey. And it's honestly pathetic that he's not on that list.
So is it going to be Celebrini from VU, or is it going to be, or does BC have a chance here for the Hobie?
It'll be either Cutter or Celebrini. It'll be one of them. If you had asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said I think Cutter's going to win it. And Cutter has kind of had some games where he hasn't been at his best the last 2 weeks, and Celebrini's been really good. I think I don't know this, but I think they probably give some favor to Cutter because he's a sophomore and he came back, where Celebrini is a freshman. That's not very fair, but I think there's some implicit bias there. But I mean, if they give it to Cutter, they give it to Celebrini. They're both unbelievable players. What Celebrini's done at BU, and he is such a good player, and he's obviously got good players around him, but he takes that team to a whole nother level. Just look at the Beanpot, for example. I mean, He put them on his back in that game, and I think that he would be a very deserving winner. I think Cutter would be too.
All right, in our final segment, I want to talk about Perrault and get your perspective on whether he's going to play tomorrow. We'll get your thoughts on that, and then what the rest of the season is going to hold for Boston College and what they need to have happen for it to be a successful season. We'll get into all of that in just a moment. This week's March Madness Bracket Highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that pushed it further than the rest. Just like all of the new 2024 Nissan SUVs, these guys were able to take it to the next level. The Auburn Tigers can only be described as a pathfinder. They've been thrilling to watch and have really created a lane for themselves after claiming the top spot in the SEC, as they knocked off the Florida Gators in the SEC Tournament Championship. Led by former Boston College player Bruce Pearl, they're set to make a run in the NCAA tournament. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada, or go find your big next adventure. Shop at Nissan USA today. This is Locked On BC. I'm your host, AJ Black. Just a quick note. This is a hockey-focused episode, and I know some of you are probably hoping for some NIT preview. I am going to be joined. I'm going to do a brief mini episode after this that'll be dropped tomorrow with someone from a UNLV podcast, and I don't have their name right in front of me right now. What is it? I have it. Hold on. Give me 2 seconds. Jason Kelly to talk about UNLV. And so stay tuned. I'll have a special episode on that up. It's going to be a mini episode to talk about the NIT coming up tomorrow. Giving you an extra love here on Locked On BC. Now, again, we're here with BC Hockey Blogger talking about the season. And as you mentioned before, one of the biggest question marks, one of the biggest things I think a lot of folks are waiting for is the health of Gabe Perrault. And I forget which line mate it was. I've seen it all over Twitter today. Alluded that he's going to be back tomorrow. If it was one of the other freshmen. What have you heard? Do you think he's going to play?
Yeah, so I think they've been trying to keep a lid on it in terms of whether or not he's going to play. I also saw that social media post. My guess is that I think there's a good chance that he plays. I don't know for certain. That's not my jurisdiction to say that he's definitely playing. He's definitely not playing, but I think there's a pretty good chance that he's going to be in the lineup tomorrow for BC.
And what's that mean for this this team? Is that going to help a lot of the issues that we saw against UConn?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's his first game back, so he's kind of been thrown right into the fire in the hockey final. But my thing is, how does the rest of the lineup respond to him being back? It's not just that those three players. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like for example, I thought Jack Malone was sensational on Saturday night against UConn. I think he should be getting some more top 6 minutes. I'm interested to see how that works out because if you put him in the equation, you've got 7 guys for 6 spots on the top 6. So my guess is that they, go back to the line they had, kind of before Perrault got hurt, if Perrault's back. But I think they'll play a year and see how it goes. But I don't. If Perrault does play, I don't think there's really many or any limitations. But I guess we'll see when the lineups are released tomorrow.
So my last question for you before we head on out, Hockey Blogger.
Mm-hmm.
BC has been dominant this season. They have played incredible hockey. We are now into tournament time. You have the Hockey East tournament, come up 2 more games there, and then it's off to the NCAAs. What does BC have to do to consider the rest of the season to be successful? Is it win it all? Is it win both tournaments? Is it do or die at this point for BC?
I mean, I think a successful season at this point, it's all about the national championship, the NCAA tournament. Hockey East is a huge tournament. They haven't won it in 12 years, which is insane. So obviously they're going to be motivated to play this weekend. It's always fun to watch them play in the Garden. I'm sure they're amped up to play in what's going to be a big crowd, in front of what's going to be a big crowd. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's really about next weekend, right? I mean, it's this team will be, for better or worse, they're going to be measured on how they do in the NCAA tournament. You don't have teams this talented and this deep every year,
Right.
and I think if they were to miss out on at least the Frozen Four, it would probably be looked at as a bit of a disappointment. But again, it's at the end, the NCAA is every team is good, and it's one game. You get a bad goaltending day, you take a lot of penalties. Things can happen, and that's the beauty of the tournament. But it's also the toughest part of the tournament. It's not like football where it seems like the best team wins almost every year. There's been some years where the best team, you know, Providence wasn't the best team when they beat BU in that fluky game in 2015.
Yep.
The best team doesn't always win, and that's the reality of the tournament. But BC, when they lost to Colorado College, BC's probably a better team that year. But you know what? On that one night, Colorado College was way, way better. So we'll see. I'm interested to see who they get and where they are. There's a lot of confusion going on around the bracket, and I think they're playing with house money. They're going to be the number one overall seed no matter what happens tomorrow. So hopefully they go out and put a couple good games together.
All right, so let's head on out of here, and we'll have you back on when the tournament begins. But where can people find you and follow your work?
Yeah, I'm at BC Hockey Blogger on Twitter, and I'm also on our site at Eagle Insider. So they can follow me there, and we'll be at the game tomorrow at 4:00. A little bit of an early game, I'm excited. Should be a great game.
So if you guys haven't joined us over at Eagle Insider, this is the time to do it. I mean, I've put together hopefully some of the best names that you guys can get for analysis on sports. And BC Hockey Blogger, I specifically brought on because he has some of the best knowledge of hockey. And so come over, if you're into hockey, he breaks down every game in detail and gives you the ups and downs and everything. So come on over to 247, check it all out, and we'll have him back on. So thank you again, BC Hockey Blogger, for joining us tonight. We'll have you again next week. And as I said, we're going to have a special mini episode to talk the NIT. If you're interested in that, make sure you check your feeds, check YouTube. We'll have it posted up later on Friday. Thank you all for following. Follow me on Twitter at AJBlack247 and hit that subscribe and like button if you like this podcast. Love seeing all of you guys out there. Thank you all the commenters who have been checking this out. We'll check you all again on Monday for a new episode where we'll talk about the NIT and a big weekend in hockey. Thank you all. See you soon.